Hello, and welcome back to Speak English Daily.
Hi, everyone. We are very happy to see you here today.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Speak English Daily. I'm Anna, and today we're doing something a little different, but also really practical. We're going to walk through a mock job interview together, and not just a quick one. We're going to take our time with it, so you can really feel what it's like to be in that situation.
Yeah, and I'm Mike. I'll be the one in the hot seat today, which already makes me a bit nervous, not gonna lie. Even though this is practice, interviews still have that pressure, you know?
They really do, and that's the whole point of this episode. If you're listening right now, there's a good chance you already speak English at a decent level, but interviews are a different kind of challenge. It's not just about grammar. It's about thinking clearly, sounding confident, and staying calm when someone is evaluating you. I remember talking to a friend who said he could have normal conversations easily, but the moment he sat in an interview, everything felt different. His voice changed, his confidence dropped, and suddenly he wasn't the same person anymore.
I felt that too. It's like your brain just freezes at the worst possible moment. You know the words, but they don't come out the way you want.
And that's why we're doing this. This is not about perfect English. This is about getting comfortable in that situation. So here's how you should use this episode. Don't just listen. When I ask a question, imagine I'm asking you. Pause the audio, take a moment, and answer out loud.
Out loud is important. If you only answer in your head, it feels easy, but when you actually speak, you realize where you struggle.
Yes, and that's where the real improvement happens. You might pause, you might repeat yourself, and that's completely fine. That's part of the process. Think of this as a safe space where you can try, make mistakes, and adjust without pressure.
I like that. It takes away some of the fear, because in a real interview, you don't get a second chance to think.
Exactly. So let's create that pressure in a controlled way. We'll go step by step, and Mike will answer as if this is a real interview. You can compare your answers with his, not to copy, but to learn how ideas are expressed clearly.
All right, I'm ready, I think.
Good. Let's begin. Hi, Mike. It's great to meet you. Thank you for coming in today. Please have a seat.
Thank you, Anna. It's nice to meet you too.
Let's start with a very common question. Tell me about yourself.
Sure. I'd describe myself as someone who enjoys learning and improving over time. I studied business administration at university, and after graduating, I joined a small marketing company. In the beginning, my role was quite basic, mostly supporting the team and handling simple tasks, but gradually, I started taking on more responsibility. I worked on a few campaigns where I had to communicate with clients, manage deadlines, and deal with small challenges that came up during the process. At first, I remember feeling a bit unsure of myself, especially when speaking with clients, but over time, I became more confident and more comfortable handling those situations. Outside of work, I try to keep growing. I spend time improving my English, learning about new marketing trends, and sometimes taking short online courses. I'd say I'm motivated and always looking for ways to develop both professionally and personally.
That felt natural. It didn't sound forced, and I could follow your journey from the beginning to where you are now. That's what makes a good answer. If you're listening, this is your moment. Pause here and answer the same question. Tell me about yourself. Take your time and don't rush it.
And if you feel stuck at the beginning, that's normal. Starting is usually the hardest part.
Let's continue. Why do you want to work here?
I'd say one of the main reasons is that your company has a strong reputation for creativity. I've seen some of your recent work, and I really liked how you connect with your audience in a genuine way. I also feel this role matches what I enjoy doing. I like working in environments where I can share ideas, collaborate with others, and continue learning. From what I understand, your company supports that kind of environment. And honestly, I'm also looking for a place where I can grow over time. I don't just want a short-term position. I want to be part of a team where I can develop and take on new challenges. That kind of stability and growth matters to me.
That answer had intention behind it. It shows you've thought about the company, not just the job. If you're listening, pause here and answer this question for yourself. Why do you want to work there? Try to be specific. Think about what actually attracts you.
Yeah, because if you just give a general answer, it feels empty.
Now let's go to the next one. Why do you think you would be a good fit for this role?
I believe I'd be a good fit because my experience and the way I work match what you're looking for. I have hands-on experience in marketing, especially in team-based projects where communication is important. But beyond skills, I think attitude plays a big role. I take responsibility seriously. If I'm given a task, I focus on completing it well and on time. I'm also open to feedback because I see it as a way to improve rather than something negative. Another thing is communication. I've worked in situations where clear communication made a big difference, especially when deadlines were tight. I try to stay calm, organized, and focused even when things become stressful. So overall, I'd say it's a combination of my experience, my willingness to learn, and the way I work with others that makes me a strong fit.
That was well balanced. You explained your strengths without sounding overconfident, which is not easy to do.
Yeah, I've learned that just saying I'm hardworking doesn't really say much unless you explain what that looks like in real life.
That's a strong point. And for you listening, pause here and think about your own strengths. Try to give reasons, not just statements.
I can feel the difference even now. At the start, I was a bit tense, but now it feels more like a conversation.
That shift is important. When it feels like a conversation, you sound more natural and more confident.
And honestly, it makes the whole experience less stressful.
We're going to continue with deeper questions next, ones that explore your experience more closely, so stay with us and keep practicing.
And don't skip the pauses. That's where the real progress happens.
Let's move forward. I'd like to understand more about how you see yourself at work. What would you say are your main strengths?
That's a good question. I think one of my main strengths is consistency. I'm not the kind of person who works well only when they feel motivated. I try to show up every day with the same level of focus and responsibility. Over time, that helps me build trust with the people I work with. Another strength would be problem solving. I wouldn't say I have all the answers, but when something goes wrong, I don't panic. I take a step back, try to understand the situation, and look for a practical solution. Even if it's a small issue, I like to deal with it properly instead of ignoring it. And I'd also say communication is one of my strengths. I make an effort to be clear when I speak or write, especially when working in a team. I've seen how misunderstandings can create bigger problems, so I try to keep things simple and direct.
I like that you didn't just list random strengths. You chose a few and explained them. That makes it easier to believe.
Yeah, I think just saying words like hardworking or team player doesn't really show much unless you explain what that looks like in real life.
That's an important point. And for you listening, pause here and think about your own strengths. Try to name 2 or 3, and more importantly, think about how you can explain them with simple examples.
It also helps to connect your strengths to your actual experience. That makes your answer feel more real.
Let's go a bit deeper. How would your colleagues describe you?
I think they would describe me as reliable. If I say I'm going to do something, I usually follow through, and I think people notice that over time. They might also say I'm calm under pressure. There have been situations where deadlines were tight and things weren't going as planned. In those moments, I try not to make the situation worse by stressing out. I focus on what needs to be done and take it step by step. I also believe they would describe me as supportive. I try to help my teammates when I can, even if it's not directly my responsibility. For example, if someone is struggling with a task and I have some experience in that area, I'll offer help instead of just focusing on my own work.
That says a lot about how you work with others. It's not just about your individual performance, but also how you contribute to the team.
I've realized that teamwork makes a big difference. Even if one person is strong, the overall result depends on how well the team works together.
Can you give me a specific example where your colleagues saw these qualities in you?
Yeah, I can think of one situation. We were working on a marketing campaign with a very tight deadline. A few days before the launch, we found out that one part of the content had a mistake and it needed to be fixed quickly.
That's a strong example. It shows your strengths in action, not just in theory.
Yeah, I think stories like that help people understand how you actually behave in real situations.
And for you listening, this is your moment again. Pause and think of a situation where your strengths were visible. It doesn't have to be something huge. Even a small example can work if you explain it clearly.
Sometimes people think their experience is not impressive enough, but it's really about how you explain it.
That's true. It's not about having perfect experiences. It's about showing your thinking, your attitude, and how you handle situations.
And being honest helps too. If you try to sound perfect, it can feel unnatural.
There's a balance. You want to present yourself in a positive way, but still sound like a real person.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, they're not just hiring skills, they're hiring a person.
That's a great way to put it. We're going to move into a question that often challenges people a bit more, so stay with us and keep thinking about your own answers as we go.
And take your time with the pauses. That's where you really build confidence.
Let's move into something a bit more challenging. Can you tell me about a difficult situation you faced at work and how you handled it?
Yeah, one situation comes to mind. It happened during a project where we were working with a new client. Everything was going smoothly at the beginning, but halfway through the project, the client suddenly changed their expectations. At first, it created a lot of confusion because the team had already planned everything based on the original requirements. People started feeling frustrated, and there was a bit of tension in the team because we didn't know how to adjust without affecting the deadline. I remember feeling stressed too because it felt like all the work we had done might not be useful anymore. But instead of reacting immediately, I took some time to understand what the client actually wanted.
What did you do first after realizing the situation was changing?
The first thing I did was review the new requirements carefully. I didn't want to make assumptions or rush into decisions. Then I suggested that we have a quick team discussion so everyone could share their understanding of the changes. During that discussion, it became clear that different people had slightly different interpretations, which was part of the problem. So we worked together to clarify what needed to be adjusted and what could stay the same.
That's interesting because sometimes the biggest issue isn't the problem itself, but how people understand it differently.
Yeah, that's true. Once we had a shared understanding, things started to feel more manageable. After that, I volunteered to communicate directly with the client to confirm the details and make sure we were aligned.
Were you comfortable taking that role, or did it feel like pressure?
Honestly, it felt like pressure at first. I didn't want to say the wrong thing or create more confusion, but I also felt that clear communication was really important at that moment, so I decided to step up. I prepared a few specific questions before speaking with the client, so the conversation would stay focused. That helped a lot. Instead of going back and forth, we were able to get clear answers in one discussion.
That sounds like a turning point. What happened after that conversation?
After that, things became much clearer. I shared the updated information with the team, and we adjusted our plan. We had to reorganize some tasks and slightly change our timeline, but it felt more controlled compared to the confusion we had before. I also tried to keep checking in with the team during that period, just to make sure everyone was on the same page and no one felt overwhelmed.
And what was the final result?
In the end, we were able to deliver the project successfully. It wasn't perfect, and we had to put in extra effort, but the client was satisfied with the outcome. What stood out to me was how important communication and teamwork were in that situation. If we had continued working with different assumptions, it could have gone much worse.
Looking back at that experience, is there anything you would do differently?
That's a good question. I think if I could go back, I would try to address the confusion earlier. At the beginning, we noticed small signs that the client's expectations weren't fully clear, but we didn't act on them right away. So I've learned that it's better to ask questions early, even if it feels unnecessary at the time. It can prevent bigger problems later.
That's a valuable lesson. A lot of people wait until things become serious before they take action.
Yeah, and by then, it's usually more stressful to fix.
What did you learn about yourself through that situation?
I learned that I can stay calm under pressure, even when things feel uncertain. Before that experience, I wasn't sure how I would react in that kind of situation. I also realized that I'm more comfortable taking initiative than I thought. At first, I hesitated, but once I started taking small steps, like organizing the discussion and speaking with the client, it became easier.
That's interesting because sometimes we don't really know our strengths until we're tested.
Yeah, and those moments can be uncomfortable, but they also help you grow.
If you were in a similar situation again, what would you do more confidently this time?
I would communicate sooner and more directly. I wouldn't wait for things to become unclear. I'd also involve the team earlier in the discussion so we can align faster. And I think I'd feel less nervous about speaking with a client because now I have that experience. Once you've done something once, it feels more manageable the next time.
That makes sense. Experience changes how you see these situations.
Definitely. It turns something that felt stressful into something you can handle more calmly.
And for you listening, this is your turn. Pause here and think about a challenge you faced. It could be from work, studies, or even daily life. Try to describe what happened, what you did, and what you learned from it.
And don't worry if your example feels small. What matters is how you explain it and what it shows about you.
That's where the depth comes from. Not the size of the problem, but how you handled it.
Yeah, because that's what interviewers are really trying to understand.
Thank you for sharing that, Mike. I appreciate the way you explained your experience and the thought you put into your answers. That's all the questions I have for now.
Thank you, Anna. It was really a valuable experience to speak with you today.
It was great meeting you. We'll be in touch soon regarding the next steps.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing from you.
And that brings us out of the interview setting. Take a second and just notice how that felt. There's something different when you go through a full conversation like this instead of just reading questions on a screen.
Yeah, I can feel that. At the beginning, there was a bit of pressure, but as the conversation continued, it started to feel more natural. Like I wasn't just answering questions, I was actually talking to someone.
That shift is important. A lot of people think an interview is about giving perfect answers, but it's really about communication. Can you express your thoughts clearly? Can you stay calm and present?
And also, can you sound like yourself? Because if you try too hard to sound perfect, you lose that natural feeling.
That's a big one. Interviewers can usually tell when someone is being too rehearsed. It creates a distance. But when someone speaks in a clear and honest way, even if it's not perfect, it feels more real.
I noticed that when I was answering. The moments where I felt more relaxed, my answers came out better. When I tried to think too much, it slowed me down.
That's something you should pay attention to if you're practicing. There's a balance between thinking and speaking. You don't want to rush, but you also don't want to overthink every word.
It's kind of like training your mind to trust itself.
That's a nice way to put it. And that only comes with practice, not just reading or listening, but actually speaking, even if it feels uncomfortable at first.
Especially if it feels uncomfortable. That usually means you're pushing yourself a bit.
So if you've been listening along, I hope you paused and tried answering the questions yourself. If not, go back and do it again. This kind of practice works best when you actively participate.
And don't worry if your answers didn't sound great the first time. That's part of the process. You can always try again and improve little by little.
You can even repeat the same questions on another day and see how your answers change. That's a great way to notice your progress.
Yeah, and over time, you'll start to feel more comfortable speaking without needing to think too much.
Before we wrap up, just remember this. You don't need perfect English to succeed in an interview. You need clear ideas, confidence, and the ability to communicate your thoughts.
And a bit of courage, too, because it takes courage to speak in another language, especially in a situation like this.
It really does. And if you're putting in the effort to practice, you're already moving in the right direction. So keep going, keep practicing, and don't be too hard on yourself.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Speak English Daily. We'll be back with more conversations to help you grow your confidence and your fluency.
Take care, and we'll see you next time.